Hi everyone, this is Heather here with Treasured Hometown. Today I wanted to show you how to make this awesome little motif tote bag. Yes, it is kind of a large tote bag. I made this one specifically to carry around all my blanket yarns. So yes, it is a little bit big, but it also works perfectly for like if a beach bag or something going on. So yeah, this pattern actually works off of those little motif granny squares that I had posted before, and I decided I absolutely needed a tote bag made out of it. So yes, those links to that video will actually be posted right into this video tutorial. And yes, I'm going over everything for it, and as always, the links to all the items used in this video tutorial will be linked in the description box below. And also, whenever a PDF version of this pattern is available, I will also link that also right into the video description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. To make this project today, we'll need a few supplies. We'll need a pair of scissors in order to cut our yarn. We'll need a darning needle. I find these little threader things very helpful trying to get the yarn through the darning needle. It's not necessary, but for those who wish to use one. We will be using a 5mm crochet hook for this project. And we'll be needing two different color yarns. I am using a worsted weight, number 4 weight acrylic yarn. I am using black, and these are Red Heart, and this one is Starburst. Your main color will be black, and this is the offset accent color for it. You can change up your colors if you'd like, but these are the ones that I used. For this pattern, we're actually going to be linking right back to a previous video that I had made. This is creating these little flower motif granny squares. I'll actually link that. It'll be in the description box below, and I'll try and put a clickable link right in this video. And you will need to go through and make a total of 8 of those squares in order to continue with this pattern. Because the squares are so large, I'm going to show you the layout here of how we're going to slip stitch all of these 8 squares together before we move on. We're going to start off with our 6 right here, and then on either end in the middle, one more square there. And then we're going to fold these sides together and slip stitch those. So we're making a rectangle type of pattern for that, just to piece these two together. So all along these little seams, we'll need to slip stitch. And if you're not familiar with how to do the slip stitch, also I will go ahead and link I have another video showing you how to do the slip stitch. And I'll actually also add that right here into the video description and try and put another little link on how to get to that video. So now we've got all of these squares sewn together for our bag tote. We're going to come here into one of the seams. And we're going to attach our yarn starting on the right side of that first seam. And then from here, we want to chain 2. And then we're going to double crochet into this next little opening here. So we started off into that first. It would be the chain 2 space, but we use one of those chains in our slip stitch. So it's now a chain 1. So yarn over, go into this opening, pull up a loop. We have 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through your first 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through your last 2 loops. So essentially what we just did here, this would be right here, the top of the stitch. We could have done a chain 2 and then start a double crochet and then start another one, so we're double crocheting 2 together, but I thought it sounded a little too confusing, so I simplified it a little bit. So this is essentially a decrease right where we started. And then into the top of our next stitch, we're going to put 1 double crochet, and we're going to double crochet once into each stitch, going across to the next opening. Now that we're here at this next seam, we're going to double crochet decrease, working into those chain spaces. So into our first, we're going to yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through your first 2 loops, then into the next. So we have 2 loops on our hook, then yarn over, go into the next chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through your first 2 loops, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. So we just did a decrease over there, and we're just going to want to repeat that. And then we double crochet into each stitch all the way around till our next seam, and then we do a decrease into the seam. And then once we're back at the beginning, we're going to slip stitch right here into the top of that first stitch for our decrease. We had our chain 2, and then the double crochet where we tied it together into that chain 2. So that would be our first decrease. We're going to slip stitch into there in order to join. All right, so now we're back at the very beginning of our round. Now here we want to start our repeats for our next row. So we start off with the chain 3. This chain 3 counts as our first double crochet for this repeat. So we did our first double crochet, and now we want to put 6 more double crochets into each of the next 6 stitches. Three, 4, 5, 6. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then that chain 3 counted as our 7th. Then we want to chain 1 and then skip our next stitch, and then we want to double crochet into the next 7 stitches. And there's just what we're going to be repeating throughout this row. Double crochet 7 times, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet 7 times. And we just want to repeat that going all the way around. So now we finished this 7 double crochets. Now we want 7 more double crochets. Then chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet 7 times, and we just want to repeat that throughout the entire opening of the bag. And then once we get to our last one, after our last double crochet, we want to slip stitch into that 3rd chain of that first chain 3 of the round in order to join. So now that we've finished that round, now if you go ahead, you'll find all these little chain 1 spaces. For our next round, similar to the last, we're starting with a chain 3. This is going to count for our repeats as our first double crochet of this round. And then we're going to want to double crochet once into the next 4 stitches, So we got 4 double crochets plus our chain 3, which counted as a double crochet. Then we want to chain 1, skip our next stitch, and double crochet into your next. And then chain 1, skip that chain 1 space, and double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into the stitch after. So we have 3 chain 1 spaces, and then double crochet into your next 4 stitches. So our repeat for this round is double crochet 5 times, then chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into your next, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into your next 5 stitches, and then start over, double crochet into your next 5 stitches. And then chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into your next stitch, chain 1, skip that chain 1, double crochet into your next stitch, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into your next 5 stitches. And then we just repeat this, going all the way around the entire top border of our bag. And once we get back to the beginning, we'll slip stitch into that 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join. So now we've finished up that last round, and as you can see, our first round that we put in after the straight round of double crochets and decreases, now we have 1 chain space into that second round we've just done, and that 3rd round we now have 3 chain 1 spaces, and those go all the way around the entire piece. So from here, with our next row, we're going to chain 3, and once again this counts as our first double crochet stitch, and then we want to double crochet once into the next 2 stitches. So that gave us 2 double crochets plus our chain 3, which counted as a double crochet, so 3 double crochets. Then we chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into our next stitch, chain 1, skip that chain 1 space, double crochet into our next, chain 1, skip that chain 1, double crochet into our next, chain 1, skip 1, so that next chain 1 space, double crochet into our next, chain 1, skip 1, and then double crochet into your next 3 stitches. So here, if you look at it, they're all lining up, 1 on either side of that first chain 1 space. So we had 1 chain 1 space, 3, and now 5 chain 1s. So the repeat, double crochet into your next 3 stitches, and then chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet until you have 5 chain 1 spaces, and then double crochet into your next 3. So I'll do this next one with you. Double crochet into your next 3 stitches. Then chain 1,
skip your next, double crochet into your next, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip this one, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip this one, double crochet into your next, chain 1, skip your next stitch, and then double crochet into your next 3 stitches. And we're going to repeat this all the way around the entire opening. And then once we get back to the beginning, we're going to slip stitch into this 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of our round in order to join. And then we can go ahead and tie off with our black yarn there. So for our next row, we're going to join our Stardust yarn into that same stitch where we tied off into. And then from here, we're going to start a chain 3. And yes, this chain 3 does count as a double crochet. And then we want to do one more double crochet into that same stitch where we started. So we have essentially, it's an increase because this chain 3 counted as a double crochet. Then we want one double crochet into our next stitch, and then into that next stitch right before that chain 1 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. And now we're going to start our puffs going into these next pieces. So we start in chain 2. Now the puffs, just like whenever we did the squares, they're going to be worked into these outer chain 1 spaces. So we work into here, 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 and here. So we'll start yarn over, go into that first chain 1 and pull up a loop. So this one's about the same height as those chain 2s or the double crochets. Yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up another loop, same height, yarn over, go into the chain 1 space, pull up another loop, same height. Then we yarn over, we go over 1 chain space and down, go into that chain space, pull up a loop that's even longer, yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, same length, yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, same length, yarn over, and then we come down 1 more chain space and go over 1 more and down to that 3rd, so it's the very bottom chain 1 space. We go into there and pull up an even longer loop, yarn over, pull up another loop, that same height, yarn over, go into the chain 1 space, pull up a loop, that same height, yarn over. Now we're moving over 1 chain 1 space to those 2, so we're going into that bottom one, go into that chain 1 and pull up a loop. Now this loop is going to be about the same length as that second set of 3 loops. Yarn over, go in again, so 2 loops pulled up through there, yarn over, go in your 3rd time, same length, and then we can yarn over. We're going to go into this last chain 1 space and pull up a loop, this one about the same height as your first set of loops, so about the height of a double crochet, 2 and 3. And then from here, remember, keep your tension tight, yarn over, and we come through small clusters of loops at a time until we get through all of the loops. then chain 1 to hold it. So we've got that last little, that puff is made. And yes, the tension keeps it so that we don't slip off of our hook. It makes it a little easier so we don't slip off. And then going through a few at a time just keeps it so that if we get our hook caught on any of these loops, it makes it easier to work around them. Then we chain 2. And then into that first double crochet, we're going to put 2 double crochets. Then into our next stitch, we're going to put 1 double crochet. And then into that next stitch, we're going to put 2 double crochets. So that's just our repeat for this top. 2 double crochets into the first stitch, 1 double crochet into the next, 2 double crochets into the next, chain 2, work your puff. Well, puff motif collection, chain 1 to hold it, then a chain 2, 2 double crochets into that first double crochet after those chain 1s, 1 double crochet into the next, and 2 double crochets into the next. And we repeat this going all the way around the opening of our bag until we get back to the end where we slip stitch and tie off into this third chain of our first chain 3 of the round. To join, I'll work one more of these with you. So 2 double crochets into the first stitch, 1 double crochet into the next, 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and then chain 2, and then we start working our puff, yarn over, go into that first chain 1 space, pull up a loop about the height of a double crochet, yarn over for our second loop to pull up, yarn over and pull up our third loop. And then move over and down 1, yarn over, go into this chain 1, pull up an even longer loop, yarn over into the same chain 1 space, pull up the same height loop, yarn over, go in again for your third time, pull up the same height loop, yarn over, go over 1 chain 1 space and down 2, go into that very bottom chain 1 space, pull up an even longer loop, yarn over, go into the same space, pull up the same height loop, yarn over and do your third. And then we move over and up 1, so it's just over and down 1 from there. So into this chain 1 space, yarn over, pull up a loop, and this one will be about the same height as that second cluster of loops we pulled up. Yarn over, go in again, yarn over, go in again for that same height, so we have our 3 there. And then into this very last, yarn over, pull up a loop about the height of a double crochet or your first cluster of loops. Do your second, yarn over and do your third, and then make sure your tension's nice and tight. Pull through a few loops at a time. And then our chain 1 in order to hold it. And then we chain 2. Then into your first double crochet here, we're going to put 2 double crochets. And then 1 double crochet into the next. And then 2 double crochets into that last stitch. And we can go ahead and repeat that all the way around for the opening, and remember to slip stitch into that third chain of our first chain 3 of a round in order to join. So we finished up that last row. We've slip stitched to join over here. So for the next set of rows, we're actually going to offset. We're going to do one more row making these little motif things all around the top. So we're going to offset it. So we need to come over right into the top, this little chain 1 that we did to join the motifs, and we're going to attach our next round for the black yarn into there, and then we're going to chain 3. And this first chain 3 does count as a double crochet for this round. Now into this chain 2 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. And then we're going to work 1 double crochet into each of these next double crochet stitches from the previous row. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we want to put 2 more double crochets into this next chain 2 space. And we're just going to repeat this going all the way around. So we had our 10 here, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So I'll do the next little repeat with you. And we'll just repeat this all the way around and then slip stitch into that third chain of our first chain 3 to join. So we're going to work into that chain 1 where we held together our little flower motif, and then 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, 1 double crochet into the top of the next cluster of double crochet stitches, which should be 10. And then 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, and we just keep repeating that going all the way around the entire border of the bag. So here we've slip stitched in order to join. So for our next row, we're going to chain 3, and yes, this chain 3 counts as a double crochet stitch. And now into our next 6 stitches, we want to put 1 double crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we had 6 double crochets plus our chain 3, which counted as a double crochet, so that's 7. Then we chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into your next 7 stitches. And then we just want to repeat this going all the way around. Double crochet 7, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet 7. So I'll do the next one. So we did our first repeat, so now we want to go back, double crochet 7, and then chain 1, skip 1, double crochet 7, and we just repeat this going all the way around the entire top border of our bag. And once we get to the beginning, we slip stitch into that third chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join. So now that we're done with that last round, from here we chain 3. So yes, this counts as a double crochet. And then we want to double crochet once into the top of our next 4 stitches. So our first chain 3 counted as a double crochet, plus 4, so 5. Then from here we chain 1, skip our next stitch, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into your next stitch, chain 1, skip our next stitch, and then double crochet into the next, 5 stitches, and there's our repeat. So our first row had a chain 1 space, 1 chain 1 space. This row we're making 3 chain 1 spaces. So a repeat, double crochet 5 times, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next 5 stitches. And we're going to repeat this all the way around and slip stitch into the third chain of your first chain 3 of the round to join. And I'll do one more of these repeats with you. So double crochet 5 times, and then chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into your next space, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into your next 5 stitches, and we go ahead and repeat this for the entire round. For the next row, we're going to once again start with the chain 3, which does count as a double crochet. And then we're going to double crochet into our next 2 stitches. Then we chain 1, skip our next stitch, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into our next stitch, chain 1, skip our chain 1 space, double crochet into our next stitch, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip our next stitch, and then double crochet into your next 3 stitches. And here's our repeat for this row. As you can see, it goes from 1, 3, and then 5 chain 1 spaces. So our repeat is double crochet 3 times because our first one here counted as a double crochet. So 3, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, skip the next, double crochet into the next 3, and we're going to repeat this all the way around and slip stitch into your third chain of our first chain 3 of our round in order to join. And I'll do one more of the repeats with you. So double crochet into your next 3 stitches, chain 1, skip the next, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into your next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into your next space, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into our next, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into your next 3 stitches, and then just repeat this all the way around. And whenever you finish with this round, we can go ahead and tie off. All right, so we're back here. We've tied off with our black. Now I've made a slip knot and attached it to my hook with the Stardust color. And I'm going to attach right into that same stitch, that third chain of our first chain 3 from the previous row, and attach our yarn right into there. And then from there I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to put one more double crochet into that same stitch. Then I'm going to double crochet once into the next stitch, and then I'm going to put 2 double crochets into the next here. And so from here, we're going to just continue and make our little puff flower motifs. So we chain 2, then yarn over, go into our squares. We're going to be working into the top, 1 over and down at the very bottom, 1 over and 1 down, and this last very top square. These center 4, we don't do anything with. So we yarn over, go into that first square, pull up a loop about the height of a double crochet, yarn over, go in again, pull up another loop about that same height, yarn over, go in for our third time. So there we got 3, yarn over, 1 over and 1 down, pull up a loop about longer than our first cluster, yarn over, go into the loop space, pull up another loop about that same height, yarn over, go into the loop again, pull up another loop about that same height, then yarn over, and we're going to go 1 over and 3 down, pull up an even longer loop, yarn over, go in, pull up the same height loop, yarn over, go in and pull up a third about the same height, and then we'll yarn over. Now we're going to go into this square right here, pull up a loop, and this one is going to be about the same height as that second cluster of loops, yarn over, pull up a loop about that same height, yarn over and pull up our third, then into this last little square here, you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop about the height of a double crochet stitch or our first cluster that we made, yarn over, go in and pull up a loop for your second, yarn over, go in, pull up a loop for our third, and then I always keep the tension on my working end pretty tight, yarn over and pull through your loops. I like to go just a small cluster of all those loops at a time just so I don't snag any ends. And then chain 1 to hold it, and then chain 2. So we've made our little flower. And then into the top of that next double crochet stitch, we're going to put 2 double crochets. Then into our next stitch, we'll put 1 double crochet and then 2 double crochets into the next. And then for this round, we're just going to repeat this similar to we did the round down here. Same thing, we just offset it a little bit. So this first chain 3 counted as a double crochet. So 2 double crochets into your first, 1 double crochet into the next, 2 double crochets into the next, chain 2, work our little motif flower, chain 1 to hold it, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the next stitch, 1 double crochet into the next, and 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And I will go ahead and work one more of these repeats with you. And when we get to the end, we'll slip stitch into that third chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join. And we can tie off at the end. So do our repeat, 2 double crochets into the first, 1 double crochet into the next, 2 double crochets into your next stitch, and then chain 2. Start working our motif. So yarn over, pull up a loop, height of a double crochet, do a second loop, and your third loop into your next square coming down, even longer loop, 1, 2, 3, into that very bottom loop, chain 1 space, even longer loop, 1, 2, 3, coming back up, 1, about the height of that first or the second cluster, 3, and into the very last, about the height of a double crochet, and then keep your tension tight, hook facing down, a few clusters of loops at a time, so just in case you snag. Chain 1 to hold it, and then chain 2, 2 double crochets into your next stitch, 1 double crochet into the next, and 2 double crochets into your next stitch. And we just repeat this going all the way around. Alright, so now we've finished off with our Stardust yarn. Now I'm going to take our black yarn and attach right into that same third chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join. And from here I'm going to chain 3. Then I'm going to double crochet into the top of each of our next few double crochet stitches. So we came out of here and then did 4 more. And then into our chain 2 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. And then 1 double crochet into that chain 1 that joined this little flower motif, and then 2 double crochets into the next chain 2 space. And then I'm gonna, from here, I'll show you the repeat. From here, we're going to double crochet 1 time into each of these double crochet stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, 1 double crochet into that chain 1 that joined the motif, and then 2 double crochets into the next chain 2 space. So we're just going to repeat that all the way around, but here once we get to the end, then we just double crochet once into your next 1, 2, 3, 4, and slip stitch into the top 3rd chain of your first chain 3 of the round in order to join. Alright, so now we've finished that round. Now I'm just going to insert our hook right into that same stitch, that 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of the round where we finished off. And I'm going to attach our Stardust yarn. And then what we're going to do is simply, this is just going to make a nice little top border to finish the top border of our bag. We're going to slip stitch right into the sides. So we're going through both loops, pull up a loop and slip stitch so it's coming out along the sides. And we're just going to do this with each stitch coming all the way around the entire top border of our bag. So you can see it, it's just showing the sides of these little stitches. And if you look, for whenever we start sewing on our straps, we still have access to these top loops in order to create our handles. So we're going to go ahead and slip stitch all the way around for the entire top opening of our bag. For our next step, we're going to start working on creating these straps. So we're going to find the front of our bag. You'll find this by, either the front or the back, 2 squares, and then especially look at the bottom where the corner was. So this would be the side, and these would be 2 side by side for either the front or the back. And then we're going to move up to the second row. Now from here, we're going to take our yarn, and into here we have 2 double crochets. We have the one into the very center there, and then 2 more, and then our 2 onto the side. So we're going to go ahead and go into the top loops. We do got to pull away that slip stitch row just a little bit to get in. I'm going to pull up a loop. Then from here, we're going to chain 3. And then we're going to double crochet once into your next 6 stitches. And just as a reminder, we're going into the loops for these. So yes, the slip stitches also went into the loops for those double crochets, so you might need to push them out of the way just a little bit. So now we have our 6 double crochets in this first chain 3 that did in fact count as a double crochet. Now from here moving forward, it's going to change up just a little bit. We're going to chain 2 and then turn our work, and then into this very first stitch, because the chain 2 is not going to count as a stitch, we're going to double crochet into there and then into each stitch going across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then our 7th goes into that 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of our round. All right, now for our next row, we're going to do it similar to this one, but we won't have that 3rd chain. So chain 2, turn our work, double crochet into your next 7 stitches. And then that chain 2 just kind of almost like hides itself away along this strap. So what this is I find that this style of a strap actually has more give onto it. So if you have any weight added into your bag, it's much more forgiving onto your shoulder. So here's 3 rows. Now we want to keep repeating this until we have a total of 32 rows. So chain 2, turn that very first double crochet. We want to double crochet into there and then into the next 6. So a total of 7 double crochet stitches made. And repeat this until there's a total of 32 rows. So now we have all 32 rows completed. From here, we're simply going to tie off, but I'm going to leave a long tail, roughly about 18 inches long. And then from here, I'm going to use the darning needle and weave in our ends into the darning needle. And then we're going to come back to our bag, making sure we do not twist the strap at all. We're going to find our same spot onto the other side. So from here, we want to look, here's our stitches that went into the top of it, of the little flower motif. 1, 2 for into that chain space, then move over 2 stitches. So I'm going to thread my darning needle into those 2 loops from there, and then I'm going to bring them right up into the 2 loops for that last double crochet. I'm going to work through those and then back towards myself twice into each stitch, matching them up as I go across. And this just makes a nice, easy little seam coming across. You could do this with just your hook and not use a darning needle, but I do find it a bit easier to use a darning needle into here. And then from here, we can just go in and weave in all of our ends. And then we just go back and once again weave in any ends that you have unwoven in throughout your bag. And there we are with our motif tote bag. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a little thumbs up, let me know what you think in the comments section. And if you have yet to subscribe, go ahead and hit that little subscribe button with that bell notification next to it. You can get a heads up every time I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.